Okay, everyone, good afternoon. I have a guest today, Anna Sokolidou, with me. We are talking about Apple stock, and one of the reasons that I wanted to pull Anna on today and talk about the article she just wrote recently. It is titled, Apple Stock is for Buffett, but not Benjamin Graham. And the main reason that I thought this was kind of interesting is because if you've paid attention at all to Apple, which almost everyone has, Apple is on a tear right now, and it makes a lot of people wonder, is Apple overvalued? Should I jump in? Is it still, normally valued and all of that? So, Anna, thank you very much for making time with us today. And the first question I had for you, for people who aren't that familiar, you did a lot of comparison between Warren Buffett and his mentor, Benjamin Graham. What is the big difference between, if you can really abbreviate it, between why Warren Buffett would hold this versus why you say Benjamin Graham probably would not hold Apple right now?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Ryan. First of all, I'd say that Apple is rather a growth stock. I know it might sound absurd for some of our listeners, but in my view, Apple has a really good track record. To be sure, it has a wonderful earnings growth ratio. Everything is good on that side, and it is kind of a sound company. It has quite a good credit rating. It has been operating for quite a while. It is really large. It is renowned. No problems with this, indeed. So in that way, I mean, the fact that it is so large and it has been operating for many decades would be a really great plus for Graham. That's a sure question, but it also has plenty of drawbacks as an investment for Mr. Graham. First of all, it is really overvalued. It is just ridiculously overvalued, although it is price to earnings ratio is quite reasonable. I wouldn't say it is quite low, although its earnings, its net profits have been growing for a while, that's sure, but still, compared to the S&P 500's price to earnings ratio, it is quite overvalued. The
Mm-hmm.
price to book ratio is whopping large. Then the price to cash flow ratio is also really high. And it also has a really low dividend yield, something that Graham would be quite skeptical about. Well, 1% for that's quite an average for
Mm-hmm.
Apple, I'd say. It used to be lower than that. It used to be slightly higher than that. But overall, such a low dividend yield wouldn't be a good uh, plus, a good advantage to Graham. The company has been buying back its stock, also quite good, many investors would say, but Benjamin Graham was also quite skeptical about such an advantage because he preferred the cash to be transferred directly to the stockholders in the form of dividends.
Now,
And
Anna, you had mentioned something earlier that I thought
mhm,
was interesting. You said that it's quite overvalued. In your opinion, and again, this isn't investment advice, but just in your opinion, what do you think a fair value for Apple is right now?
well, it is quite an interesting question, but also I'd say it's quite hard because maybe it should ideally be valued 50% less than that, I'd say.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
if we get a record long recession, maybe it would be the case, like a Great Depression, but I don't think it would be very likely. But anyway, I wouldn't touch it myself. But it
I
is also
mhm.
a good investment in a way. If we see it as a growth stock, it has a really good competitive advantage over its peers. It has it has a really strong brand image, and many customers are really willing to overpay for Apple's electronics. The company is highly innovative as well. It has Apple's payment systems. It has even its own streaming platform. So
Mhm.
basically, the business is also diversified. So
Mhm.
also quite great. It is not just a pure iPhone maker. Also a good thing to be basically.
They really do. They have that's one of the tough things when you value Apple is they have such a brand that so many people how do you put a value on a brand quite like Apple? Even there was the kind of the drama a few years ago where Apple made it where if you are sending text messages within Apple users, it appears blue, whereas if you send a text message to a non-Apple user, it appears green. And there was a kind of an underlying psychological effect of, oh, this person isn't an Apple user, and the kind of the trend and the brand that goes along with that. I think you also mentioned something very unique about, and I'm scrolling right now in the comments section of your article, and someone else mentioned it as well, or maybe it was in your actual article, where Apple isn't just iPhone anymore. Apple has, like you said, payments, streaming content, data storage, all sorts of other items that they're currently expanding. And perhaps it was maybe in your article. I'm scrolling right now to find it was the second largest piece of revenue for Apple was all of these other